All right, folks. Definitely looking forward to an amazing conversation. Looking forward to letting folks know about all kinds of amazing things that are going on here in the world and all of that. As a matter of fact, we've got an artist that's coming at us all the way from Texas who is doing some truly amazing things and all of that. So I'm looking forward to a conversation with Stud the Kid. And I understand that she is organizing a lot of great and amazing things and is a musical personality, a producer, and an entrepreneur. She is also the CEO of the entertainment consulting firm DRH Consultants. So she's looking at actually exposing a lot of other folks that are doing amazing work as well. She's actually even got a weekly multifunctional event called the Exposure Explosion Festival, which is dedicated to bringing endless opportunities while providing all artists with a vessel to showcase and market their creativity. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna have to get her in touch with my good friend Brett Chambers, who's got something similar. He does an open mic here in Durham, North Carolina, where I'm based at, that is celebrating 25 years in existence. As a matter of fact, I had the pleasure of talking to Brett earlier today, and he was telling me some of the things that he's got going on in his world and in his space. So looking forward to hearing from Studs and hearing what Stud has to say and how they even got involved in the rap world and the hip hop world and all of that. I know that I'm always fascinated by people and their journeys and all of that. So I'm looking forward to finding out more about Stud the Kid and all of that. So we're going to bring Stud in and see what Stud's got to say about how things are going on in their space. So, Stud, I see that you're in San Antonio. Actually, one of my good college roommates lives and think still lives in that area. He was originally from San Antonio, and I think had even done some work in the TV industry in Laredo. And that was my buddy Danny Hermosillo, who has worked in both nonprofits and in television as well. But he's in that area and all of that. So, just tell me, how is the hip hop world going there into Texas? Because a lot of times when people think about hip hop, we think about the West Coast. We definitely think about the New York vibe. And of course, there's the Dirty South now as well. And of course, I'm here in North Carolina, which is the home of Ninth Wonder, but also has a lot of other people that have done real well. As a matter of fact, Joshua Gunn is a person that knows me and I know him. And of course, Pierce Freelon is actually a family friend. So we do have folks here that have done some amazing work. But I know that Texas has its own scene, but a lot of people don't even know about the Texas scene, unfortunately. But I can even say that from the blues world, because I'm a fan of Houston blues. And I know that that's different than, say, even New Orleans blues, even though that's right next door, and different than Southern blues or the blues from Chicago and a number of other places. So we do have regional music. And of course, it's really hard to be even a woman in the industry as well. So I'd love to hear your thoughts just about how you got involved.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on, Mark. I'm so excited, so grateful. So the music scene down here, we're amping back up. So of course, COVID took us out for a bit. A lot of artists couldn't, put their craft to work right now. So we've had to, let's just be real. Entertainment life has had to adjust to more than ever the business side of things. So we've had to establish an office. We had to put in place new procedures that typically wouldn't even matter in the music world. So we had to do a couple of adjustments, but we're definitely making it out here, starting to pick back up. As you mentioned, Exposure Explosion Festival is ramping up. So yes, we've added some things to that to make it even stronger, so that it can even withstand another COVID outbreak if we have one, another, just any kind of situation at this point. So we've got that, and then as far as myself, so how I kind of got started. Um, I got started pretty young in the entertainment industry. Built some like other type of businesses. Realized entertainment was my passion, and just truly just ran with it. So DRH Consulting is the business side of things. Exposure Explosion, of course, obviously that's the motherboard, so to speak, that holds all the marketing, entertainment features, and you've got Stud the Kid herself, and that's just more the personal type, hosting, establishing the brand. So definitely.
Wow, it's amazing. Who were some of the people that inspired you to get into hip hop and some of the things that you really enjoyed about that?
Oh, good question. So, this is probably the most standard statement ever. Drake is definitely one of, to me, a great lyricist, but he kind of inspired me to go more into the R&B style genre type with artists and marketing that way. But the entertainment, I would have to say, honestly, man, that's such a good question. I'm gonna say more of like the Slim Thug era, because back when I was younger, Slim Thug was a hit. You got Zero, Trey, Bootsy, all those were like my generation. Webby. So I would have to say more of those style. Back in the day, you had a story to tell, and we told it. We didn't care how it came across. That's just what we said and what we did. So more there.
Well, and a lot of people, I've been talking to some hip hop artists from around the country, even around the world, and I know a lot of them have been using social media. So I was wondering, how important has that been, even in terms of getting your own word out? I've become a big fan of Clubhouse, and I've met some artists that are even using that as a platform to become known in the world. But I've also seen people using Facebook and other things. So I was wondering, how have you managed to do it, and how important has social media been to getting your word out?
So the thing about me, I guess I'm more old school. Old school, to me, old school work best. So I focus on commercials and marketing companies, actual marketing companies. So I believe commercials work. I believe, new, a lot of the new ways, social media is so saturated. So I try to stay away from so much social media marketing because everyone's doing it. And since everyone's doing it, when you are in the hip hop field, it's not just you dropping music, it's 1,000 other hip hop artists as well. It's not just you who has a label, it's a million other labels dropping their label information saying, hey, sign to me, sign to me, sign to me. Even my connections. When I get on Facebook, I tend to even shy away from talking too much business because I have 1,000 connections who do similar businesses and we're all saying the same thing. So, at this point, it's so saturated. I don't even try to focus on social media. I try to focus the parts that everyday people use every day. So I'm more about when you walk into the airports, you should see logos, signs, and our name that makes you go, I wonder why they're on, the gas station pump. That's what I target. I target your everyday life so that way you hear
Well,
and see and stuff like that.
now that makes a lot of sense. Now I know that other conversation is happening in particularly the hip hop world, but I've seen it in jazz, seen it in blues, and other things. Is the way that women are represented and the way that women are portrayed and everything. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about that because I've definitely heard some people complain that there's too much objectifying of women in some of the videos and also in some of the lyrics. So as one that is a pioneer woman in the industry, what is your reaction when you hear those complaints?
So, funny enough, I am learning that right now that is today's time to be a sex symbol. Let's just call it what it is. It's a sex symbol. They want you to be a sex symbol. You have to be skinny or thick in all the right areas, as they say. You've got to wear, very slutty outfits. That's what they want. For me, I come in very controversial, obviously. So, I come in, I call, this generation, because this is where we're at, the young and maids of it all. So, obviously, I am gay. So, of course, that's not all the way accepted in the industry 100%. So then you have your Debrat. So, and then Debrat, she's a great example of someone who still has that sex appeal, and then someone who can change and alternate who she is and what she is in the industry. For me, I'm probably coming in a little awkward because I definitely believe that I'm having problems. I mean, because again, when people decide to work with you, they typically go off how you look, not your credentials. So, but I'm learning to make sure my work outweighs what I look like because I know that, being completely who I am isn't completely accepted yet.
No, definitely. And you mentioned that. And sometimes we also have folks that use differences to be dividing factors. I remember hearing about the Netflix controversy with David Chappelle, where he basically attacked those out of the transsexual community and is definitely an African American comedian. But I was just wondering your thoughts about this divide and conquer kind of mentality that also sometimes seems to happen in the entertainment space, particularly as one that is in that kind of like proud of all of your parts of your identity.
So, all right. So I'll be honest. I believe we should have, as a gay woman, I believe I should have equal rights, not necessarily a whole festival and a carnival that should be celebrated because I'm gay. So I believe that, accepting is, can I marry who I want to marry, whether it's a man or woman? Yes, that's all I needed. Thank you for your acceptance. We can keep going. I think that for the gay community, in that gay community, I think sometimes I don't necessarily agree with needing all the extra. Like, I don't think I need a different restroom. I don't think I need, to have a parade. That's, to me, that's a lot. And that's it, because you don't really do that for straight couples. I have yet really, even in just San Antonio, I don't see a straight pride. So, we're not, and sometimes I think there's a difference between wanting to be accepted and wanting to be admired, if that makes sense. I want to be accepted, not admired. So accepted is the ability to, do what it is that I need to do without further complications. Admired is I'm expecting you to bend different things because I feel I'm above other things, and I'm not trying to be that. I just, want to be able to marry who I want to marry. Let it go. My taxes, that type of, direction. Just when I die, if I'm in a relationship, that my other half is able to get those benefits.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. How would you describe your own music? Like I said, if you had to describe it, I mentioned the different styles, and of course, definitely different people have different styles. But if Stud the Kid had to describe her music, like one of the things that I told some of your agents and everything when I was talking to them is it definitely seems to be what I consider to be activism music, meaning that it has some spirit of also getting messages out, but also having fun. But that's just my description. I was wondering, how would you describe your music?
I would definitely say it's both. I do try to stick to the fun side. I do focus more on producing. I like to use the instrumentals that I put into my everyday commercials, because a lot of times when I put music out, I'm putting it out based off of producers I work with. So Ozzy Lennon is one of those. Shout out to Ozzy. He's the one that created Her Way instrumental, and we produced that and put that together. And so when I used that for my commercial, that was wonderful. And so definitely the playful, fun, but serious has a message. Most definitely.
Now that makes a lot of sense, and I can definitely see that being important to what you're doing and everything. Now, in terms of the idea of even performing in this age, because we're in the middle of a pandemic. I've got a friend who's a funk musician. He actually did a concert about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he actually did a poetry event this past weekend, but he did one. There was a funk and craft festival, but I do know there was a large time frame where he was not feeling he was getting enough of ability to even get his band together, because the band is actually scattered. It's not just himself here in North Carolina, but it's bandmates that are in various other places. So as an individual artist, it's probably not as much of a problem for you because you're primarily individual, but there are times that you want to do performances with people. So I was just wondering, how did the pandemic affect you as a musician, and how did you get around it?
So in the sense of music, I'm more on the business side of things. So I technically don't have that personal issue as an artist, but on the business side, running the consulting firm, running the concert marketing firm, that definitely has been an issue. So, and it has been a challenge. And like I said before, you definitely have to grow with today's times and learn to adapt and plan ahead for the future. So, surprise everyone, we realize we can get a national, disaster. Now we have to plan for that. So now we know we can get diseases that come from anywhere and affect everyone at the same time. So can our services adapt to that? And just, I think it was more of a wake up call and more of a reality that we have to adjust. We can't do the same thing we used to do and expect a different result. So So definitely, it has affected.
That makes sense. You actually brought up something else that I've talked about with a lot of artist friends of mine, which is this concept. And I'm glad you keep bringing up business because I think that a lot of people are very good at the show aspect. I don't know whether it's visual artists or whether it's performing artists. We're always good at the business side, and they do call it show business for a reason. So I was wondering your thoughts about that and how good or what brought you into the business side and even learning about the business side, because I find that even some of our elders in the entertainment world don't oftentimes know enough about the business side, and we've even seen that in the sports world as well. That's why we have some athletes that were making millions that are now pretty much broke and everything along those lines. So I was wondering, what time in your life did you decide that business was going to be almost vital to what you're doing?
So one good lesson, I think people have to understand is that if you don't know how something works, how can you continue to push it?
Mm.
So it's like, I want to know how something works. So if it breaks down, I can fix it. I want to know how something works so I know where my money's coming from. The bigger thing came from, I want to know where my money is coming from. I want to know how to keep my money, and I want to know how my money is going to grow by doing this. At the same time, now taking it even deeper, how can I take the concept of this and turn it into even more money? Well, that comes with understanding again the full process. So I think for me, it's just a desire to want to learn the processes of things, the desire to want to take something apart, put it back together, but also how to make it better. It's like why we have 1,000 different vacuum cleaners,
Mm.
because someone built a vacuum, that vacuum cleaner took off, and someone said, wait a minute, I can take this apart, redo it. Well, if I can do that, I can add on a new piece. Now the suction's even better. And so then it turned into, now you don't even need to push it. You can just press a button and the vacuum cleaner goes. And then it was like, wait a minute. If you could do that, I could turn it into a Rumba. You don't even have to touch it. It just vacuums on its own. All you got to do is download an app. So for me, it's just looking at the processes of things and taking that concept to how can I take this concept and make it better?
Now that makes a lot of sense. Did you have family members that also grew up in music, and were you the kid that was always involved in music? And did you find this musical connection at an early age? Like I know some people, even in the hip hop industry, were definitely involved in their church and things along those lines, or they may have had family members that were in the church as well. So, is this something that came to you naturally because of family ties, or is this something that you developed from listening to other artists and you just decided, hey, I can do it as good as they can? Where did the impetus did this dream come to for you?
Honestly, it just came from not necessarily family. I think it was just more started off as a way to escape um, the everyday life for me. So it became a way to just um, have a focus. And then, honestly, I think the entertainment is good for people with disabilities like myself. So having autism, entertainment is the perfect field because it's one of those you can deal with people when you want to. So, and then when you don't want to, you have things in place. So that's the best way I could say, it really works out to my advantage. And then it allows me to, it's nothing like stepping out here in the crowd, getting the crowd going. My anxiety's super high. And then, we're having these amazing festivals. I get off stage and like that, though that crowd doesn't come with me. And so I don't, that's the best way for me to explain it. It's for me, it fits right in with my autism and just being able to um, deal with people at my own time, my own pace. And it allows me to use every bit of lesson I've learned in life. It's just a real good root. There it is. Real good root.
Definitely that real good food, and definitely it can be very influential and all of that. In terms of national artists, were there any that really resonated with you? You mentioned a couple of those like the Brat and everything, but I'm also thinking that maybe there were people that were in that kind of message oriented stuff, whether that was Public Enemy, and I'm going way back in time, or whether that was people like Arrested Development, which is even further back in time, and everything that really resonated with you. And I know that there are current people that are doing that also, but I was wondering who are some of the ones that you listen to that really you're like, I can really relate to what they were saying, and I want to bring some of that into what I am doing as well.
Man, That is so powerful. That's a good question. Honestly, this I do not know why. I do not know why I'm going to say this person, but this person truly inspired me. Webby to me is the most inspirational underground, half mainstream, half not artist that is really good business wise. I don't think people pay attention to his uh, business style. I mean, his music is good, but in his business, it's insane to me. So the backside of things, people have to research him though to understand what I'm saying. I think he did really good, even at his age now, just still being relevant. So yeah, I would have to say his business. I know it's kind of off the wall. Some people are probably like, "What, Webby?" But you have to pay attention because what I pay attention to is who's still relevant. So, you can like all these other major artists, but how long are they going to be relevant? And that's what I look at. And not even for their personal life. Name how many times we heard about, Webby's personal life. Not often. You know what I mean? So I pay attention to just business side of things, who is relevant.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. You got to pay attention to that and everything. How has it been coming developing new talent? Because I noticed that part of the contest is developing new talent. Like I said, my friend Brett has been doing his contest, well, not a contest, but his open mic for 25 years. And I sometimes think that people don't pay enough attention to what I call either the open mic circuit, but also kind of those working the woodshed, as some of the older musicians would call it, kind of attitudes and everything. So how important are contests like yours, in terms of getting discovered and getting found? And have you had any success stories yet?
So I do not have a success story quite yet. I'm really, really slow to putting certain things out. So the biggest thing that I have learned in building Exposure Explosion Festival, first of all, it's slowing down and picking. I think for the festival side, a lot of people are eager to just perform, but you have to be careful because anyone can throw a festival,
Hmm.
but are you reaching the need and are you reaching the customer? So Exposure Explosion Festival slows that down and starts to focus all the way down to the root of the issue. So, for instance, we have an online platform that not only provides interviews, but a mobile app that you can download, and you are now glued to your phone all day because you can order and see a vendor online and
Hmm.
order their stuff from our app. You can get a meet and greet through our app. You can get a free concert through our app. There's just so much you can do with just a piece of our company. We're not even talking about the weekly festivals. So, and then we pay attention to the customer side. What are they paying out? What are they getting for their buck? You know what I mean? How do they get that appreciation? And so we take the Amazon approach. We look at customers, and if the customer's not happy, we're not doing it. And then we also look at the artist as well and what they need in their growth. And then we make sure that we split who focuses on what. So my team, a lot of times, some of us will focus on the customer, some of us will focus on the business side, and then we bring it back together. And then we're like, okay, how does this work? So that's the key. So I think the bigger thing is how you're building what it is that you're
All
trying
right.
to be,
So
especially
what we're talking about right now is
in
we're
performance
talking
stuff.
about some of the things that
That makes a lot of sense and everything. And I know a lot of times people get frustrated also by corporate America and the corporate end of radio and entertainment. I know that definitely people will know that Live Channel or Live Nation and definitely even Clear Channel are in control of a lot of things. So I was just wondering your thoughts about how you can break into the field as an indie artist, because so much of it is controlled by corporate America. Like I said, I mentioned two of the major players, but Radio One can also be added as one also. So how do you actually address the fact that even though we're becoming more open with things like Instagram and other things, it's still very frustrating to the independent artist?
So the big thing is, I believe everybody needs to be corporate. So, and I'm going to be really honest. I think everybody needs an LLC or nonprofit or some type of something, because you have to look at what separates an indie artist from corporate type style artist? Well, they have the backing. Are you trademarked? So you're trying to be a rapper, but you don't own your name. You're just out here rapping and you're out here using it. So if Johnny, who's working with corporate America, that company is going to make sure all the legal ends are met. So are you doing that? You know, as an artist, do you have a business bank account that separates you from your personal account? Because if you're not, then you're still. So the key is I think artists have to stop looking at it with the term indie and look at it in a sense of, can I stand like corporate? If you get you a corporate and you run your entire empire off of corporate, you could be where they are. You know, you can get on those type of services. No one wants to work with Johnny because they have to look at his personal credit score. But now you can get an artist who has trademarks and LLC behind them, and they're willing to work with that artist because they're protected. They have those services in place. And so I have just learned how to operate like corporate America, but support indie artists to grow like Jeff Bezos, to grow like Elon Musk.
That makes a lot of sense. You definitely have to have that growth. You have to have that growth space. I know one of the other things that happens is that sometimes people get frustrated by the negative voices, the people that are actually listening and not being encouraging, whether that's family members or whether that's the inner voice. So as one that has been in this game now for a while and everything, how do you address that? Because I know a lot of times we get frustrated because whether it's our outside influencers, and that can even be members of our own family, or whether it's that inner voice is telling you that you're not going to be as successful as you would like to be and all of that. How do you fight that?
So that is such a powerful question. I am the most negative person known to man. So with that being said, the roles are flipped for me. My family now has been my big support. They do believe in the vision. They do support the vision. Not everybody has what I have. I will say that right now. And it took me a long time to get what I have right now. And honestly, I didn't even get it. It came to me. It was forced upon me in a way that I think I had to be willing to lose myself to accept what I have now. So honestly, negativity is hard to lose when you're in this industry. I mean, any industry, really, but it's really bad out here. And so the advice I would give the artist, learn to shut yourself off. So one thing I have had to learn how to do was cut my phone off, cut off all electronics around me, focus on my family, or focus, if it's family that's the problem, you have to learn to shut yourself off. Get you a hotel and take a moment to yourself, remembering your goals. So I always make my goals higher than what I've already reached. You have to have those goals and stay focused. Staying focused is not easy, but negativity can be difficult. And you can be negative to yourself and break yourself down. I've done it. So I can't tell you how many times I felt like giving up because, I didn't want to deal with something because people were just coming at me left and right. So it is challenging, but when you're committed to the goal and you're committed to the industry, you have to learn how to sell yourself to it, and I think people started off right when they said you have to sell yourself to the industry, but then they were saying it wrong to outside. They kind of took a left turn. I believe you have to sell yourself to your dream. If you really believe in your dream, then you have to let your old self go because you can't bring your old self in with your new self.
Now, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing I was curious about is a lot of times you've also got folks that want to make it in the industry, but they get frustrated because they have to take the 9-to-5 job. And I'm not sure if that's something that you had to face as well, or they have to get what I call the gig jobs, whether that's DoorDash, whether that's something like a Lyft or Uber or something like that. So what do you say to people that really want to get into the field, but they feel that they can't do it fully because they've got to have survival money and survival existence?
So I'm going to say this. You have to be willing to lose everything. I know it sounds completely ridiculous. You have to be willing to lose everything. I had a car, that's gone. I had the insurance payment, that's gone. I had a house, that's gone. I mean, like, I had an apartment, that's gone. Like, you have to be willing to lose everything. I had friends. Well, I had friends I thought were friends. That's gone. You know, you have to be willing to lose everything, because again, you have to let yourself go and become the new person that you're trying to be. So if Sally is trying to be a rapper and she is focused on a job, you know, that's 9 to 5, then you're not really focused on your vision. And I have to be really potent when I speak on this, because people might miss it, but you have to understand that you can't do half and half and make it. You got to pick a side, because they both require your full attention. So you got to jump. You got to believe in your vision. That's why I said people sometimes need to take the time to sit down and write out their goals and how they want to get there, which is where the term business plan comes from. Because a business plan will keep you focused on where you're headed so that you can plan accordingly. So now if you're saying, okay, well, I'm going to have this job and I'm going to stack this much money up so that I can have it by this time, I completely get that. Now, if you're saying I got to have a job so I can keep a roof over my head, and because I don't have another option, well, then that's where it gets shaky, because the roof over your head is the same money you're going to need to get your dream up.
Yeah, that's true. And you got to have that roof over your head and everything. But a lot of people don't want to make those sacrifices. What was it that drove you to making the sacrifices? And when did you really decide that I'm going to do this no matter what and everything? Because I sometimes find that people talk a good game, but they don't necessarily want to do the good game and everything. But it sounds like you've been driven since a very young age to get into that space. So at what point did that drive really almost take control of your life?
It started when I was younger, then it paused. I became, I call it normaltized. So I became the whole, I've got to, you know, make sure I have a normal job with a normal living. And then my mom now, she's the one who was like, she was listening to me, and, you know, she has a funny attitude sometimes. So she's like, I hear you. So what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the house, because this is unnecessary payments. Like I said, you have to have that support. So you got to have support. So please don't just walk off your job tomorrow. You know, you got to have the support. You do. So that's why I said I'm blessed now, because I wasn't back then. So I'm blessed to have that support. So, man, support is a big thing. So that's what drove me now, because, you know, like I said, in order to make it, you have to lose everything. You have to. So the person I am right now is completely different than who I was even just 6 months ago. Who I was 6 months ago, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So, and who I am today is completely different, because I have to constantly evolve into someone that I'm trying to be. And it takes a lot out of you, and it makes you realize you have to drop more.
Yeah, that's very true and everything. And sometimes we just don't pay attention to enough of that. It becomes very frustrating. And we're sitting there going like, I just don't understand why people are not given the support that we want to give and all of that. So one thing that one of our founders on this network talks about is education and the feeling that we're in the 21st century, but we have 18th century values. So they really wish that we would learn more about financial literacy and also about the art. So as one that went through the San Antonio school system, what is your feeling about the art and whether we're getting enough support for the art, and particularly even what some people might consider newer arts like hip hop and things of that nature? So I'd love to know your feelings as to whether we've been getting enough support in the school system.
Well, first of all, what we learned in the school systems has nothing to do with real music. So I firmly believe that it does not teach us where music comes from or how it even came about. So I do believe that we need a updated learning system, but I also believe that those type of things come from home. So, and those things come from more influence and who someone is interested in. So I believe that's important, definitely when you hit the middle school, high school area, you know, because you start trying to find yourself at that point. So I definitely think that, you know, the school systems could definitely use some updated studies.
No doubt about that. And I want to continue the conversation with you and everything, but we're going to take just a little brief of a commercial break. So I'm going to bring some spots of about process that I actually am a big supporter of called Genius is Common. It's actually the belief that we all have a genius in us. So I'm going to bring up a couple of these spots and then we'll come back and continue the conversation in a few minutes. But I did want to bring up a few of these spots. And then I want to ask you about this concept, which is that we all have a genius within us. But I'll let you hear the spots before you make a comment about it.
Okay.
So when I heard about the whole concept of Genius is Coming, it was something I had to be a part of, just simply because it's a way to articulate what I already do with the young people, right? Giving them the power to understand that their voice has power, that their truth matters, they matter. We all have gifts, and my genius is helping others to explore and unlock those gifts. I think my greatest genius is being a dad, though. But with this right here, we're going to take you on a little journey into John Paul's world. This is my genius, and my genius is common. Word.
Of your 490-degree angles, solitude in the land of complete strangers. Adapting to the world changes. Through my art, pour out my heart to some of the pain stinging. Of your 490-degree angles, solitude in the land of complete strangers. Adapting to the world changes. Through my art, pour out my heart to some of the pain stinging.
Right? This is real. This is just the presentation of this means so much more. Just the presentation of this is letting the world know, letting your parents and all these other individuals know that you are not that, right? Because you are not, brother. You wrote that, right? Intelligence. That's what that is. You are the smartest. That's what you're gonna say, because that's gonna be your truth. So let's start from the top, but I need you to speak louder. And I want to make sure you're clear. I know you're reading it, so it's cool. Start from the top. Confidence. Word?
Word.
Count it off.
5, 6, 7, 8. If you could see a man walking down a crowded street, talking out loud to himself, don't run in the opposite direction, run towards him, for he is a boy. You have nothing to fear from the boy, but the truth, the truth. I come from a place where there's love, there's hate. I come from a place that's not so perfect. I come from a place that's big, that's small. I come from a place where people play and fight. I come from a small town where people sell narcotics, kill each other, and be greedy. My mama loved me too much to be on the streets. People rather sit on their behinds and complain, want to take but don't want to love. To love, to love, to love, to love.
My genius is new man.
Sweet home Alabama, where the skies are blue. Sweet home Alabama, Lord, I'm coming home to you. Tell me about it, man.
See, I am from the land of ham and grits, where we stay caught up in it, where we ain't quick word for shh. We stay flowing our emotions down in these sticks. We keep dirt on the tires, taps on the telephone wires, and everybody you meet is potential liars. Y'all welcome to the ham. See, it's the land of political scams, and the whole government's a sham. They only fix potholes at election time, but you be hard pressed to find another city as raw as mine. This is the place where MLK got locked up that one time, where I spend most of my time getting powered up to shine. Cause round here, I'm something like a super saiyan. Sometimes I be talking crazy and y'all don't understand what I be saying. On every corner, somebody praying. See, it's a lot of churches. That's why they call it the Bible Belt. When I was little, I found out how twisted switches felt. It snows sometimes, but it always melt, cause we stay hot down here in what?
Sweet home
Genius is
Alabama.
common. My daddy said that this right here is grown man music.
say this right here is grown man music.
This right here is grown
Come
man
on.
music.
I say this right here is grown man music.
This right here is grown man music.
I say this right here is grown man music.
This right here is grown man music.
We tell them this right here is grown man music.
This right here, this right here. Now I came out the trap to put the ham on the mouth, one hand on the mic, keep
One
a hand on the strap. Cause y'all be acting crazy down here in the dirty. Grown man status ever since I turned 30. Brain flow, Bill Gates, so label me nerdy. 5 mics in the hood, so label me worthy. Man, I'm so real, I don't need no grill. It is what it is, this is how I live, cause this is real life. Y'all dogs that don't bite, walking in the dark, now I'm searching for the light. Say bruh, say bruh. You ain't spitting the truth, now what you spitting for?
Yeah.
Say go and get your own, what you waiting for? Just use your head for what he made it for. This a grown man thing, holler later, bruh. Say this right here is grown man music. This right here, this right here.
I say this right here is grown man music.
Right here, this right here.
Hello, my name is Rochelle. I am 11 years old, and my genius is entrepreneurship, and my genius is comedy. I have been hard at work, and my genius said the age of 8 when I asked my parents to buy me an ice cream cart for my 8th birthday. Why? Because I love ice cream, and I knew that 99.9% of the world loves ice cream too. I started my business because I wanted to make my own money, give to my school's missionary, help my family, and buy my own toys. While working in my genius, I have learned a lot about business and what it takes to be successful. I quickly learned that hard work, determination, and perseverance are the standard qualities you need to succeed. However, in my 4 years as a business owner, I have learned things that you can't learn from a book, like the true meaning of customer service. Great customer service is how you sincerely say thank you to each person who spends their money with you. I have learned that there are more people praying for me to succeed than those who are not. I have learned that people are always watching and are expecting great things from me. I can't imagine letting them down. I have learned that I must lift as I rise, and that I must be my brother's keeper. I have learned that it's very important to give back to the people, the colleges, and the community where I live. I have also learned that once I become a billionaire, I will be well on my way to becoming a billionaire and to changing the world by providing jobs and opportunities to others. genius is coming.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jay Hollingshed. I'm a mental performance coach, a certified life coach, certified executive coach, a public speaker, a Huffington Post contributor, international best-selling author, and I am still growing into my genius because pretty soon I will be Dr. Jay Hollingshed. None of the titles that I just ran down to you would even be possible if I didn't tap into what you and I both have in common. That's called genius. Genius is common. Now, everybody has it. It's that one thing that you are very good at and you excel at that no matter what. Me, mine just happens to be connecting with people, introducing them to their potential, and allowing them to manifest their greatness. Let me ask you this. How long are you going to let your genius be on hold? Don't wait. Be great today. Start now. Exist as your genius. And through love, be a blessing. This has been Jay Hollingshed. Genius is common.
Hi, I'm Janae Adams, and my genius is I know how to attract money to people. I paid off $50,000 of debt in 2 years. That's right, $50,000 of debt in 2 years. Now I travel the world as an international speaker and the author of 2 books sharing my story of how I did exactly that step by step. Not only am I a speaker, but I also do financial wellness programs for corporations, and I have an online platform and online courses for individuals around the world. So that is my genius, and of course, genius is common.
Going to switch my view shortly here and everything so that I can actually get an even closer look at you. But what is your thoughts about genius is common and that whole concept of the fact that we all have a genius in us and all of that? Because I know that definitely Bruce George, who is the creator of that, he oftentimes talks about it regularly, but I was just wondering your thoughts around that kind of notion that we all have a genius within us.
That is excellent. That is great. One thing I noticed is that everybody had a legal business behind them. So that's what I was talking about. You know, having that backing, that business backing. So I think it's a wonderful notion, a wonderful concept. I think that the pieces fit. I think that was awesome.
Yeah, I agree. They definitely fit and definitely is a powerful thing, even with your own message and everything of that nature. Now, I know that you're primarily based there in San Antonio, but I was wondering with the way that you're doing the explosion and everything else, because we do have an international platform, this being the international broadcast media, how much of a reach are you trying to get even with your own goals and your own music? So how much of the music has gotten outside of the San Antonio area? And if you had any contacts with people on that global front, and would you like to have a contact with people on that global front? And if so, how are you going about doing that?
So yes to all of those. First of all, I would love more connections. I always say your connections are your investment and your wealth. So all the connections are welcome. Every connection I meet is worth $1 million in my eyes. So definitely, we do, and we are reaching those international platforms, national. My goal is, I want people in Africa to hear me. I want people in Italy to hear me. I want people, in towns I've never heard of and places that don't have internet to say, for some reason, we are getting exposure explosion out here. I want it all. So I am very happy with the reach we're starting to get and the height and the levels. Because when I tell you, mark my words, this same time next year, Exposure Explosion Festival is going to be everywhere and very huge.
Yep, definitely. It's going to be everywhere, and a lot of people are going to be noticing it and everything. One of the things that I love about your mission is that you're trying to use the music to solve and help solve a lot of programs. Because like I said, when I got the press release and when I heard about you, you were talking about using this music to deal with things which I know are important in San Antonio, but they're also important in areas like Durham and in California and a number of other places, like the housing issues that we've got going on that have been coming out of the pandemic, like the whole issue around our folks that are facing hunger, which I definitely think is a shame in a Western world and all of that. So I was wondering, how are you going about doing this? Because a lot of ways that even your team talks about you is as a creative visionary. So you're using your music to help us deal with some very serious world issues. And I just pulled out 2 of them, but I know there are other ones as well. So I'm just wondering, how are you going to use these tools in order to get that message out?
So wonderful question. So first of all, attached to us, we first focus, like I said, on the need of our clients. So that would be artists, vendors, etc., models, all of that. We addressed housing, healthcare, food, transportation. I mean, the list goes on. Childcare, colleges, all of that. So our company decided it was best if we opened up our own hospitals, clinics. So Exposure Explosion Festival has its own hospital, clinics, schools, housing, just everything known to man. We have everything you can find in Little America. We have that in our America as well. That's what we call it, Little America. So we have that in our little platform as well. As far as for customers, we literally focus on the customer side of things by coming to our festivals. So things we do during our festival and also outside of our festival, Coats for Kids, food drives. And I'm not talking food drives like the food bank. I'm talking in-depth foods that we can say we know you guys eat and need, in services that offer that. Our clinics do those type of drives. So literally coming to our festival is a need for not just the musicians, but also the customer side. We aim to solve those issues on both fronts using all methods.
And it looks like you've almost built a model. Like I said, I'm here in Durham, North Carolina, which is the home of one of the Black Wall Streets. There were several. There was one not that far from you in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and all of that. So I was just wondering, how much of that history have you used even in creating the platform and in terms of telling the story? Because I sometimes feel we don't do a great enough job of telling our own narrative. But I was wondering, how much of that past history did you already know about and did you use in creating your model?
So I am just now working on starting to tell my story and my truth of how I started. A lot of times, I make the mistake of just talking about the business, and that is a gap that I just recently started tapping into, which is giving my truth and how I got here. So that is something definitely new for me and something I am working towards.
Definitely. And speaking of that truth and everything, you mentioned it earlier, being a person that is part of the LGBT community, how do you feel it is important for you to be proud of that identity, but also to share the truth and not necessarily put up with some of the BS that goes on from not just the hip hop industry, but the music industry in general? So I was just wondering, how much of that truth do you try to reveal and use as a advocate tool, even in terms of getting other people to tell their truth in that space?
I think a big part of who someone is learning to accept who they are,
Mhm.
and all sides of it. So I'm definitely working on learning to appreciate who I am, and including my sexuality, and learning to get comfortable in who I want to be, but also keeping that same spin that I have a freedom um, to my own desires. So again, not getting so tapped into what everyone else wants me to be, but also staying true to myself in a sense of who I am.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. Um, at what point did you decide that you wanted to not depend? Because it seems like you did kind of a Prince move in the sense of you didn't want to necessarily go the traditional sign up with a label, and you created your own label. So, at what point did you decide that that was going to be the best move for you? Because a lot of people aren't always going to do that, but it seems to me that one of the things you realized is that if you were going to wait for the major labels to come get you, that might not happen. So why not create your own? And that's what it seems that you did. And I just want to know, at what point did you make that decision?
I'm impatient. So my thing was, I was not going to wait for someone to tell me I'm good enough. That was the big thing. So when I created Tama Industries, the goal was, I'm already good enough. The question is, do I understand again how this piece works so that I can put it together myself? So I studied how to develop a record label, put all the pieces together, own all my pieces, and the next step was just establishing it. Now I get paid by the label. So that's the goal. When I push myself, just all my money come back to me. That's what I wanted, and then some. So that's the key. Just me really focusing on, I want all the parts, not some of the parts. You know, I want to cut someone else a paycheck too. You know, I want to be able to teach someone the process. And so that's kind of what it was. I'm impatient, and I want it, and I want it now.
And speaking of wanting it now, you had also created your own independent television show. So I wanted to know more about that too, which is Stud Kings and Queens Club TV show. So definitely I'd be interested in knowing more about that and how that came about. And who knows, maybe we can bring it to International Broadcast Media, because they gave me programming proxy, which means that I can definitely help them find shows and even bring shows to the platform. So just letting you know, depending on what the show is, it might be able to find a home here as well. So they do give me that kind of proxy and all of that.
So, wow, I'm so happy you brought this up. You have no clue. So, Stud Kings and Queens is my baby. So, technically, this show has a couple of parts to it. So, the first version of the show is, it is about, so, you know, you see the Bad Girls Clubs. That's the best way to look at it. And basically, we are kind of like, you have a bunch of women who are considered themselves studs, like the LGBT community, and their goal is to make it in the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. That's why I said it's perfect that you tapped on that, because that is what it showcases. A day in the life of, you know, females that dress like men, come off that men type, and they're trying to cut it in the industry, and they're dealing with backlash and everything else. They're dealing with fighting their sexuality, with what is accepted, and then who they are, obviously, and they're trying to make it. And then the other spin of the show is also our models, because we also have models who come of all shapes and sizes. And so we also have a spinoff of that for them, where they're learning to showcase their talent, skills. You see a day in the life of them working in our festivals, and then going home and learning how to live together, build their careers up. And so basically like that's Stud Kings and Queens.
Well, like I said, I know that they're all about trying to bring people from around the nation and around the world, but in all different styles, because we are not all monolithic of any sort. So I know that they've definitely got people from different nationalities, different the two genders, but different orientations, different styles and everything. So definitely, I do know that they've given me proxy. So I think that I can definitely say that that is something we can talk about bringing on to International Broadcast Media, because I do know that they want to try to have these kind of conversations going on a regular basis. And it does sound like y'all are doing some amazing work in that. But one of the things that I know people get frustrated with, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, because I've had a conversation with other friends and guests on the show and everything, is a lot of times in the festival circuit, there are folks that love to get you for cheap. They love to get you for cheap, don't want to necessarily pay you your worth and things along those lines. And I know that there are even some festivals here that, will be happy paying an artist, $100. And if they got a band and the band is made up of 5 or 10, that might get you a burger at McDonald's, maybe, or something like that. So it's not exactly going to get you a lot of money after you do the travel expenses and all of that. And I imagine the same thing goes on there in Texas as well. So I was just wondering, how do you deal when you're out there performing or even trying to get people to perform with folks that want to undervalue the artists that are out there? I mean, you wouldn't ask a plumber to do anything for free, but they do oftentimes ask our artist community to do it for free or dirt cheap. So I was just wondering your thoughts on how you fight that.
So the first thing that I remember is that in entertainment, there's an invisible credit score. So because there's really not a way to determine right off the rip an artist value besides their fan base, their reach, etc. So I try to tell artists, you have to keep in mind, you have this invisible entertainment credit score, and they're judging you by all these different factors. So if you don't reach a certain credit score, they're going to ask you to basically jump like, okay, we're going to pay you either low or none, so that you're going to have to prove yourself that you can handle this. And so a lot of times what I tell artists, shy away from too many services that expect you to pay for performances, and go to services that allow you to perform for free, but that you have to cover your own expense to get there. The reason why: you're willing to open up a show for free for Beyonce, the following she pays for you. That's the trick. Build your credit score. So you have to kind of have a healthy balance between what I'm willing to do for free and what I'm willing to do, for profit. And once you do something for free, you can then put a cost to it because you have a proven value of what you bring to the table. If an artist is saying, I want to get paid to perform at a festival, but you've never performed in front of, thousands to hundreds of thousands of people to millions, then why are you asking for, thousands of dollars when you've never done it? Again, you've got to come off proving yourself. Once you do it that one time, you have proof. People can see the videos, the hype, all of that. Next thing you know, now you demand money. Do everything first in a promo state of mind. If I do it like this first, I build my credit score. Now I can expect money.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely a great attitude and everything. What's one of the best shows in terms of being an opener or even being a fellow person on the ticket with somebody that Stud the Kid has done so far and everything? We do know, like you said, Beyonce is definitely out of Texas, but I was just wondering, what are some of the shows that have really resonated with you so far because of who else was on the ticket, maybe that you opened for, or that you had a chance even to sing with?
So I don't open for anyone. So that I am a big no-no for myself. I focus heavily on business side, and I really focus there. I think that because of what I do, I have to keep a balance between my business and then my own personal brand. And because I focus heavily more on the business side of running a festival, running the marketing, making sure the interview is great, the TV show, just everything, I really try to focus there. So I don't open. I will, however, host. That is something that obviously Stud the Kid does for a living, host. Okay. So I bring that energy, that fame, but of course, that all depends on what I'm doing. I heavily focus on the business side, though.
Now, focusing on that business side is very important. That's definitely something that I wish, as I said earlier, more people would do, is focus on that business side, because I sometimes think that people get so caught up in the show part of it that they forget the business side. So I'm glad that you're doing that on a regular basis. How important do you think it is to maintain the culture and the history of hip hop? Because hip hop definitely, it's got the various elements, and it's definitely got a young history. It's only 50 years old as of last year, if I remember correctly, or maybe it was this year and everything. But how important do you think it is to maintain the historical element of hip hop in the work that you do, whether that's as a performer or as a presenter?
I think it's important. I think the biggest is going to be evolving. So evolving with the trends, and so making sure that not only do we pay homage to how it started, but also pay homage to where it is today. And I think sometimes what happens is we have gaps in what we really mean in studying hip hop. So we're more than willing to talk about the Tupacs and the Biggies, but we're not willing to talk about the Little Pumps and, all of that. So I think that we have to have a healthy balance because they both bring a trend that I think needs to be known and a style that could really help future artists.
And what are the trends that you're seeing now in hip hop that you are kind of studying and seeing coming about and everything? And where do you see hip hop being, say, another 50 years from now? Or you can even go 10 years from now in terms of its future. We know it's definitely being incorporated in all kinds of commercials. I've definitely watched several times that Snoop commercial, which is actually a liquor commercial. And it also features one of the Latin American hip hop artists as well and all of that. But I was just wondering, where do you see hip hop going?
Hip hop is taking some detours. Hip hop, I'm going to be honest. I think we might start, sounding like babies, soon. Hip hop is taking some detours. We're into the mumble rap right now. We're into a couple of, other things that aren't necessarily what we're used to for hip hop. So I think we're going to branch off. I think that there's going to start becoming departments of hip hop. So you have your mumble rap, you have your lyrical artist, you have your we call it you're able to rap, sing, and dance. So act, all of those. I think we're just going to start breaking off. So I think hip hop is going to take a detour into departments and branches. And then I also think that we're going to start creating things that haven't been done. I remember one time I met a young lady who was telling me, hey, you want to see my break dance? And I'm like, yeah, show me. And she started, doing this. And I'm like, what is this? And she's like, oh yeah, this is the new break dancing. And so I'm like, oh, how old am I? Like, I just think hip hop is taking some detours that, I'm just trying to stay updated. I'm studying everything because I realize that the times are not the same. So, you don't even have to move your feet to be considered dancing anymore. And that's, so it's been some learning curves, but, I have to ask my little sister now, what is this? This TikTok, never would I have imagined something like TikTok existing and becoming culturally accepted. And so that's the thing right now, learning to pay attention to those times and how to even do that. So definitely, I think hip hop is breaking off into branches.
Oh, yeah. And it actually reminds me of something that's gone on in all other genres as well. I know that I've got friends in the jazz market, and some of them are definitely what are considered smooth or pop jazz aficionados, and some of them are very much straight ahead. And sometimes they can have a meeting of the mind, but sometimes they are very much against each other's style, feeling that one might be a more truer version of jazz than the other. And we've definitely even seen that in blues and R&B and a number of other things as well. So I was just wondering, have you seen it happen where some people may feel that there is a quote unquote purist version of hip hop? Because I do know that was part of the conversation in jazz, was whether straight ahead was a more pure form than, say, what Herbie Hancock and George Duke might have been doing.
I think, like any bloodline, we're starting to get saturated and diluted. So I don't think we have a lot of pure rap from back in the day. And if we do, they're taking forever to come out again. So, or they're getting pushed behind because of the new accepted style. So it would be nice to have some of those old school, rap back out right now, but we just, to be honest, we don't have the same old school feel. You know, we are literally in a whole new bloodline of rap. You know, it's not even the same. So it used to be your raps had to make sense because the beat was turned down so we could hear what it is that you had to say. And it was so crisp and so clear. A person could say your line word for word right back to you without the beat, with the beat backwards and forwards. Now, I mean, we're just saying anything and it's a hit, it's a trend, you know, or our hook is the song. So all you got to say repetitively is Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang. And you are Billboard Top 100. You are getting a Grammy. And don't forget, you are nominated for 3 different other things. And you are winning the Top Artist of the Decade award. What? So, you know, not saying it's bad, just saying times have changed.
No, they've definitely changed. I don't know that when I was listening to the early days of hip hop, and I mentioned some of those names in the past, but I can even go back to the Sugar Hill Gang because I actually know the guy that did the like the bass line on that. Chip Sharon is actually featured on one of those earlier songs, so he's definitely involved in that, even though he's more of a fusion jazz performer in this day and age, and maybe considered also maybe somewhat of an R&B performer, and not so much a singer, but a performer, as he is an instrumentalist. But definitely, I agree that sometimes I'm going like, what is this? And I'm sure that there are folks that have said that with the generational differences and everything. But what are your thoughts? And I know it's been an issue ever since Tipper Gore brought it up way back when, decades ago and everything, when folks want to restrict what people are saying based on how it might be offensive, because there are some people, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a fan of both of some of the lyrics as well as some of the things that they were saying, but a lot of people did not like the name NWA, and a lot of people didn't like a couple of other names that were out there as well. So what are your thoughts about people that get offended by words like that? And there have even been some words in the LGBT community, like that F word, that have also been used in songs as well. So I'm just wondering your thoughts about negative words that are used in rap and whether there should be an attempt to get people to curtail that.
Ooh, music is literally about freedom of speech. I think that we have a habit of taking it personally, you know. If I would have known back in the day that when my mom was listening to R. Kelly, it meant I was finna have a little brother or sister, I would not have, you know, been listening to R. Kelly, you
Right.
know. So, you know, I think that the only difference between this generation and the past is that this generation is just saying it, and the back generation hinted it. You know, we had a different way of speaking about it, but you heavily knew what was implied. You know,
Right.
there's a meeting in my bedroom. You know, well, what meeting we going to? Because I'm, you know, I ain't trying to be late. This
Right.
generation is more blunt. You know,
Right.
we finna go in my bedroom. You know, this generation it's the same thing. The only difference is we're just blunt, and the last generation respected that you may have a kid or few, so they're gonna just be careful about how they word it. But it's the same thing. I mean, it really, to me, it's just this generation is a lot more blunt about it. A lot more, you know, this is just what it is, and I think that's kind of the difference.
It's interesting you say that because I can definitely agree with what you're saying, because definitely I can remember, like, there's a classic song about a chair, and I can tell you the song really isn't about a chair. It's really about a woman's backside, but the chair is used as a analogy for what they're talking about and everything, but they're talking about the chair as if it is an actual chair, but that is not literally what the song is truly about and everything. But on the opposite side, there are some songs, and I'm definitely a fan of some of them because I'm a fan of what some people call Southern Soul. And there are some songs in that are literally very blunt. I would say they are as blunt as hip hop, because definitely Marvin Sees, when he says stand up in it, I don't think that leaves much to the imagination. And there's a young lady from, I want to say Texas actually, that used to have a song. Vicky Baker is her name, and I think she's out of Houston, and she stopped her career, then she restarted it, and I think it's been restarted again. But she had a song called "Don't Give Me No Lip," and the line that I remember the most is the kind of the hook song, which is that she wants the person to do something below the belly button but above the knees. And if you know the female anatomy, that doesn't leave you much choice to tell you what the song is about and all of that. And that is literally what the song is totally about. So there are some very blunt songs even in the blues world and everything that they don't leave much to the imagination either if you listen to the lyrics. I've also thinking about Miss Jody, who talks about riding the pony, and I don't think that she's really talking about a pony in that song if you listen to the lyrics.
That's how I feel about Genuine. I thought, growing up, I'm like, oh, okay, I like, jump on it, let's get it. I'm thinking, oh, this is great. And then now, as an adult, I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to get on one of them. So, like, now it's more clear. So, definitely.
And it's interesting you bring that up, because that's one of the things that I even saw in old movies. Because, like I said, I am a fan, and I remember probably when he was even little younger than I am now, and I'm in my late 50s. So let's just say it's 20 or 30 years ago. So he would have been in his 50s at that time when the first Shrek came out and everything. And my dad brought me and my younger brother over, and this was before my brother had his two kids, because I don't have any. But when he brought us over, and he was basically pointing out to us that, yes, it may look like a kid's movie, but there were a lot of double entendres within Shrek that were clearly geared toward the adult audience. And if you watch back and you see the movie, you're like, okay, I get it now and everything. But at the time, the kids were watching it.
Ants is the same way. So I happened to watch that movie, and I said, oh my God. No, I know what you're talking about. There's so many. Yes. No, that's so true.
There's so many of those double entendres that people don't catch. And it does seem like, and as a business woman, I was wondering what your thoughts about this, because it does seem that there are some people that are masterful marketers and everything. I would actually even argue that, and this is just my thought, I've said for a while now that I think that some of the things that people are bringing up now, even with some of the conspiracy theories, no matter what you believe in them, whether you're pro or anti-vaccines and everything, sometimes they've already told us some of this stuff in the TV shows of the past. Because I remember watching and being an adamant fan of the X-Files and also of Twin Peaks and both of those shows, but more an adamant fan of the X-Files. If you go back and watch some of those episodes, you're getting there and you're thinking to yourself, this looks like the 21st century right now. So there are some storylines that actually remind you of stuff that is happening now. So I sometimes think that the Hollywood producers might have some government agent friends, but that's just my personal thoughts and everything. So I think that they must know somehow the way to get these stories before the rest of the world gets them and all of that. But I was just wondering your thoughts.
I live my life around The Simpsons. I firmly believe The Simpsons know the future. So I pay attention to them because I believe I do believe that we get signs. I have to be careful because but I do believe that we do get signs that tell us where we're headed. And so I believe The Simpsons are a part of that trend. So I watch The Simpsons faithfully. So because I feel like they're my answers.
And they probably told you, because I do remember that it came up several times when the last president got elected, that The Simpsons had predicted that Trump would be elected in one of those past episodes. I don't remember watching it, but as a Simpsons fan, do you remember this episode? Because I think that there was an episode where they elected him, and apparently he did some crazy things like he did in real life as well. But I've heard from some of my Simpson fans that there was an episode that was historical where they predicted that he would be president a long time before he was.
They sure did. They predicted that. They predicted the coronavirus. They predicted so much. So I watch The Simpsons. That's how I know what I need to do next.
Okay. So I did not realize, what episode did they predict the coronavirus? Because I had heard about the Simpsons episode, but they had an episode where there was a virus?
Oh yeah. If you watch The Simpsons, it's like, again, it's one of those subliminal messages. They don't necessarily call it what it is, but you know what they're talking about. that type of thing. So I have literally sat down and watched that. I watch Futurama. I feel like they're warning me too. So, I watch all those little type, but Simpsons for sure. I'm not exactly sure which episode, but I do watch The Simpsons faithfully, and they do talk about half of the stuff we're going through.
Wow. And how did you survive, or how has San Antonio been surviving during this? Because I'm even wondering how you're able to survive in Texas, because I know that we brought it up in our news stories as well as everything else. Because if there is a repressive state, don't get me wrong, North Carolina has its moments and everything, because we had the whole bathroom bill. But if there is a repressive state, particularly with women's rights, with what y'all are doing with the abortion and with some other things, I'm going like, are you ready to move out of Texas? I'm just being honest and everything, because Texas seems like it's a scary place to live at this particular moment. Because I've heard about what they're thinking about Roe versus Wade and some other kind of deals with people's rights and all of that, particularly their rights to choice, whether that's around the vaccine, whether that's around the rights of choice in terms of women's rights and all of that. But I was just wondering, and that's just two that come to my mind. I know there's some other repressive laws that I was going like, no, Texas may need to break off and become its own country, but that's just my thoughts. But I was wondering, how have you been dealing with Texas and the Texas mentality as one that even lives there?
Honestly, it's getting dark. It's getting dark in Texas. I really do not agree with the state trying to tell women what to do with their bodies. You're telling women they're not allowed to get on birth control. They're not allowed to have abortions. They're not allowed, and I think that, we're fighting the very countries doing this to their people. We're starting to go into that, and I think that for me, it is scary because, I can't fathom the amount of women that go through abuse every day, and they are now forced to have to deal with that because the government says, oh, this is what you have to do, or the state, should I say. And I think it's really wrong. And I think that, there needs to be more voices and more people speaking up about their rights. And I think that, I think that there's a lot more to come from this. And I think there's dark days ahead, to be honest. So
right. Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of things that are going to come out the woodwork that, I don't think as a community we're quite ready for that.
And speaking of a community not being ready for anything, last year, and definitely we had the George Floyd trial. I think that there's some things going on in politics, like maybe even a bill tomorrow that'll deal with some things that hopefully will make policing better in Minneapolis, where that took place and everything. But as one that has been in Texas, and I know Texas also was involved to some degree in the Black Lives Matter movement and everything, what is your view and feelings about where we are as a nation in terms of race relations and in terms of division points? Because it's not just race. I think it's also class and everything of that nature. So it's one that is definitely trying to create a vision and be a visionary. And I imagine part of that is also being a person around unity. But we do have these dividing factors. And some people would argue that that's what Black Lives Matter is, even though I would argue that they're bad apples in the police force and they need to go and definitely need to be gotten rid of. And I also think that people misrepresent what defund the police means, because I think that it doesn't mean like get rid of all police, even though there might be some that is what their idea is. But I think the majority are just wanting police to be responsible. But I was just wondering your thoughts, particularly, as probably one that might have even seen loved ones lost, because I do know that there are some serious crimes in part of Texas. I know definitely around Houston. I'm not sure what San Antonio looks like, even though as I mentioned earlier, have some friends in that area. But I was just wondering your thoughts about the Black Lives Movement and where it is now.
So I will say that I have been very fortunate to have great support from both sides. Mm-hmm. I have not been racially profiled, nor have I ever been racially profiled. So I have dealt with situations that I could have been, but I have not been. So, and I've dealt with the cops a lot, especially in Austin, Texas, in my younger days, and I was never racially profiled. I had great support from both sides. So now going forward into, what I can only go off what I see on television, what I hear on the radio, and obviously conversations, that surround these things. I stand a very neutral front. I do not side on any side right now, just because I think one of those things, if you have not been in that situation and you have not experienced it, you cannot really speak on it. So because I have not been racially profiled, I don't think that I can speak on it enough to say what I believe, because in my belief, well, I've met a lot of wonderful, white cops and black cops, but also I have had a lot more help from, the white side of things. I have had a lot more help than from my own African American people, to be honest. So I can't it can get a little tricky because I've had more help from whites than I have blacks. So I can't say that, either or I think that, they're just trying to do it. I can't speak on it. That's the biggest thing. I just can't. I think I wouldn't be the best in that ground quite yet.
No, that makes sense. You actually, and I'm going to switch the topic and everything. You mentioned Austin, Texas, and like I said, Durham has had a very rich musical independent community, meaning that they've got all kinds of music, whether it's hip hop, whether it's indie rock, whether it's definitely even some musical forms that people might not even be able to identify with that much, because we even have like a polka group, and we've got some groups in terms of Irish jig. I'm not saying that they're a lot of them, but there are music bands in all of those styles, and of course a strong jazz scene and a strong blues scene. And a lot of times when people compare a place that has a similar indie music vibe, Austin is the first one that comes to mind. So I was just wondering what it was like growing up there in Austin and seeing these different styles of music, and did that influence your hip hop journey as well? Because I'm imagining that you probably saw some amazing indie rock groups as well as some amazing indie R&B groups, and not just the hip hop groups. Because when I think of places with a strong indie music scene, Austin is definitely one of them that has always been out there as having that kind of reputation, along with maybe Nashville and some other cities like that.
I absolutely love their rock side of things. I think they have great rock music. I love their jazz. I think Austin has excellent jazz festivals. I have seen nothing like it. I think it's wonderful. I think that the people there are great, and so I love Austin. So as a whole, their music scene is wonderful. I think they're a great place for people who are trying to get started, for sure.
No doubt about that. And that's the kind of vibe that I got from it. I know you said you've only got a few more minutes, so I was getting ready to wrap up with a couple of questions that I asked all the guests and everything. But before I get to that quick question and everything, what advice would you give for folks that are thinking about breaking into the business, other than getting in touch with you and having your platform help them and everything? But what other advice would you give to folks that are thinking about breaking into the music business?
I would tell them the first step is analyze your goals and where you want to be. Build a business plan. Do not just start jumping and you don't know where you're jumping to or where you're going. Have a plan of action and decide, is this a long-term goal or a short-term goal? Because that will help you dictate what you need to do next. So a business plan is a big part of everything. If you have a business plan, you can jump right away because you already know what it takes and what you need to get there. If you don't have a business plan, sit tight, think about it, process it, build a plan out, type it up, erase it again, start over, relook at it, look at where things are headed. Do not look at what's happening now. Look at where it's headed. Pay attention to the sites that you're using to live your day-to-day life. Pay attention to the resources that are out there and not for you to use, that your consumers. Pay attention to the consumers, not yourself. It doesn't matter that you like your song or your music or your goal. Pay attention to what the people say they like and what they need. You'll be just fine.
And that makes it good. That's some great advice and some amazing advice. I think more people need to take and all of that. Now, one of the things that we always do is we definitely give our guests an opportunity, and hopefully we'll get you back on because I love having guests come back multiple times and all that. And who knows, maybe we'll be having your show come on the platform because I just gave you a hint that is a possibility and all of that. But that being said, how can folks reach you currently in the world of social media in order to learn more about this amazing festival, about the amazing work that you're doing and all of that? And then the closing question that I ask everybody is, this is an international platform. We've got folks that are listening in like around 150 countries or something like that. And of course, all 50 states and everything. So we always love to have people give their message of hope and positivity. We do know that we've been going through a very difficult 2 years, and who knows, it might be another year of difficulty, even though things do seem to be opening up, but that could also be opening up another can of worms if we don't pay attention to the variants and other things that are happening out there as well. So what message of hope would you give to folks, and how can they reach you? That's the long and short of what I'm asking.
So basically, you can reach me by looking up on Google Exposure Explosion Festival. We are everywhere, all around the world. You can look us up. You can also download our app, Exposure Explosion Live, Exposure Explosion. Contact us. You can just do that. You can call our office. You can even email us, info@exposureexplosionfestival.com. There are so many ways. Google us, research us. We're everywhere. Google me, research me, Study Kid. I'm everywhere. And we will definitely get back to you. As a message of hope, please, please stay strong, stay well, stay blessed. Know that you are not in this alone. You are listening to this podcast for a reason. So we hear you, we see you, we're standing with you. Do not lose your drive in this industry. Do not lose your drive in yourself. Stay focused. We hear you. We see you. You are not alone.
Well, what a powerful message and everything. And I've been hearing a lot of people talk about in this age and everything, people finding their tribe. And it seems to me like that's part of what you're doing with this, is helping people find their tribes. And I have actually argued that we're in the middle of a new renaissance. I compare it to the Harlem Renaissance, and I'll even go back as far in history as the Italian and the Greek Renaissance, where we're seeing people create new things that had never been created before, like the metaverses. I know there's a Black metaverse and some other things that are out there, and of course, new music and all of that. So I was wondering, as you go out the door and everything, of course, I do want to holler at you 1 minute after I hit the end broadcast and everything, but as you go out the door and everything, what is your thoughts about that? Do you think it's important for people to find their tribe? And do you also think that we're in the middle of a new Renaissance age in the sense of new energy of creativity being out there?
We are. That's why I said stay focused. We're here. We are definitely in a new renaissance. That's why you have to stand firm, because the thing about it is it's about the pack that stands the strongest and the longest. So if you noticed, part of the reason why, the Renaissance last time, because they ran. If they would have stayed for the term, they'd still be here. And that's the key for us. We have to stand strong and we'll be just fine.
Yep, I agree with you on that. And on that note, we're going to get on out of here. Like I said, I'll probably holler at Stud on the other side and everything, but we are definitely going to get ready to get on out of here. This has been a truly amazing conversation. And like I said, look forward to having many more with you. And definitely next time, we'll even try to bring on some of your music as well. And who knows, I may even edit some of it in there also. But that's part of what I'll be talking to you about on the other side. But we're going to hit that 30-second spot, which I sometimes use as a beginning and an ending and all of that. So I think I'll do that. Actually, I think I'm going to use our more traditional method, which is one of our PSAs and then the airplane to get us on out of here. So we're going to hit the PSA and then the airplane to get us on out of here, because that's one of the ones that we use also regularly. So we'll hit the PSA first and then the airplane, which talks a little bit about the network.
Put the keys down, Kevin.
But
I'm gonna drive home.
There are several warning signs present that you shouldn't be driving.
I guess I have really been looking for love in this dating app. Yep, I'm definitely gonna call a ride home.